So, with the trade deadline coming up, and there's a lot of draft picks that are going to get moved. And, of course, the number one thing you hear is, well, it's a weak draft. It's a weak draft. It's a weak draft. It's a weak draft. The draft, it's kind of weak. It's kind of a weak draft. And that's fine. But even in a weak draft, there are good players. So I figured I would load up the 2000 NHL entry draft and take a look. Now, at number 1, you've got Rick DiPietro. Number 2, Danny Heatley. 3, Marian Gaborik. 4, Radoslav Klesla, or Rusty Klesla, as he later became called. 5, Rafi Torres. So see, there's a steep drop after 3. I think Klesla was a decent defenseman, but not really a top 5 guy. Hartnell was number 6. Number 7 was Lars Johansson for Boston, which was a large mistake. 8 for Tampa, Nikita Alexeyev. 9 for Calgary, Brent Cron. 10 for Chicago, Mikhail Yakubov. And 11 for Chicago, Pavel Vorobyev. Hey, Blackhawks fans, remember those guys? Yeah. 12, Alexei Smirnov went to Anaheim. 13, Montreal grabbed Ron Hainsey. 14, Vaclav Nedoros went to Colorado. 15, Artem Krukov went to Buffalo, and he never played a game. 16, Marcel Hossa, so the bad Hossa. 17, Alexei Mikhnov. He played 2 games. Edmonton drafted him. Doesn't really matter. 18, Brooks Orpik. So see, if you draft right, you can get good players. And then I'll just go through guys who played more than 500 games. Okay. Number 20, LA drafted Alexander Frolov, who I believe is still playing in the KHL. 21, Anton Volchenkov was drafted by Ottawa. He played 696 games. I think he's playing in the KHL too. After that, at number 24, you have Brad Boyes, drafted by Toronto. Number 25, Steve Ott, drafted by Dallas. I hate Ott, but he has played over 800 games in the NHL. Number 28 was Justin Williams. 1,059 games for this kid so far. 669 points. Damn good player, key in the playoffs. 29, Nicholas Kronwall was drafted by Detroit. So yeah, he was drafted 17 years ago. And then in round 2, so we're past round 1. Round 2, Nick Schultz played 1,057 games, drafted by Minnesota. He's still in the league. Number 38, Thomas Kopetsky was drafted by Detroit. He played 578 games in his career. Number 46, Jarrett Stahl, drafted by Calgary, played 872 games in his career. Andreas Lilia was drafted by LA at 54, played 580 games. Number 55 was Antoine Vermette, currently suspended from Anaheim, of course. He's played 968 games in his career. Drafted at 62, still in round 2. Paul Martin by New Jersey. So that's just the first 2 rounds. There's some good players in there. There are some good NHL players in there. Now in round 3 it gets a little more difficult, but they're still here. Mike Rupp was drafted by New Jersey at 76. Played 610 games in his career. At number 95, and still in the NHL, the New York Rangers draft Dominic Moore. At 97, Carolina drafted Nicholas Wallen, who played 614 games in his career. And at 118th overall in the 4th round, 883 games played by Lubomir Wisnowski, who I also think has gone to the KHL. When they're Russian, I'm assuming, or Russian or European, in this case Slovak, I'm assuming, yeah, went to the KHL. Now, of course, the big draft, and this is the one that everybody sort of references when they talk about a weak draft, and that's 99. 99, the number 1 draft pick was, of course, Patrick Stefan. And Stefan, the weakest number 1 overall, probably not. Actually, I can move this background now. I had it facing the other direction because Yvonne had been in here getting dressed, and I'm not going to. Has Mayday on TV. I think that's what chased her out. Is they showed the engine flying off and like engine 3 flies off and knocks off engine 4, and doesn't that look like a great plane to be flying? And then they're coming in for landing, and then all of a sudden they nose down into a hotel. I love Mayday. But I will turn that off because I'm doing a video and I've had comments about the television being on before. The TV needs to be washed and cleaned up. All right. Really see it right now on here. All right. Now, the 1999 draft is the one that gets the most flack. It's the one that everybody looks at and says, oh, the 99 draft, that was just awful. Well, it got the Canucks the Sedins, so it wasn't awful. Let's see how teams did for themselves that draft. So Anaheim drafted Nicholas Kronwall at 83rd overall, so 3rd round. He played 628 games. In the 2nd round, 44th overall, they drafted Jordan Leopold, who played 695 games in his career. Of course, Atlanta drafted a lot of players. Atlanta drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players. And the one who's played the most games out of those guys is Derek McKenzie with 513. He's still in the NHL, but it shows that having more draft picks doesn't always equal more success. Boston, in the 1st round, drafted Nick Boynton. He played 605 games in his career. I like Boynton. Buffalo, in the 5th round, at 138th overall, drafted some kid named Ryan Miller. In the 3rd round, Calgary drafted a goaltender named Craig Anderson. He's only played 490 games, but since he's a goaltender, I'll mention him. Colorado in the 7th round, 212th overall, drafted Radim Verbata. So when you hear 7th round, you go, whatever, it doesn't mean anything. It usually doesn't, but every now and then it does. Detroit in the 7th round, famously 210th overall, drafted Henrik Zetterberg. Edmonton in the 3rd round drafted Mike Comrie, 91st overall that year. Florida, drafting at 70th overall, 3rd round, drafted Nicholas Hagman, who played 770 games in his career. The LA Kings, at 76th overall that year, 3rd round again, drafted František Kaberle, or later he'd be known as Frank Kaberle. 523 games he played in his career. I think he's still active too. George Parros gets an honorable mention. He was drafted in the 8th round, 222nd overall. 474 games, 1,092 penalty minutes. There were 9 rounds in the draft back when this draft was done. Now there's only 7. Adam Hall was drafted in the 2nd round, 52nd overall. He did play 682 games in his career. Martin Erat, the butt of many jokes, was drafted in the 7th round that year, 191st overall, 881 career games played. Mike Commodore didn't reach 500 games, but he was drafted in the 2nd round. He did win a Stanley Cup with Carolina. 484 games played for him. Decent defensive defenseman. Tim Connolly was drafted 5th overall that year. Played 697 games. Taylor Pyatt was drafted 8th overall that year. Played 859 games in his career. Chris Kelly was drafted 94th overall in the 3rd round. He's currently at 810 games played, and back with Ottawa. Good, decent bottom 6 guy. Martin Havlat, who recently retired, was drafted in the 1st round by Ottawa that year, 26th overall, played 790 games in his career. Pittsburgh drafted Ryan Malone in the 4th round, 115th overall, 647 games played for him. In the 7th round, Pittsburgh drafted Tom Kostopoulos, who played 630 games in his career. And last time I played NHL, I found Kostopoulos in, I think, the German league. So he's still technically active. Douglas Murray was drafted in the 8th round, 241st overall by the San Jose Sharks. Played 518 games in his career. Barrett Jackman was drafted in the 1st round by St. Louis, 17th overall. He played 876 games in his career. He retired. I did a video earlier this year about his retirement. And there's the Sedins, who both played over 1,200 games in their career. And and that's it. And the 99 draft actually had more players who played in the NHL, reached the NHL in the 2000 draft. So I'm just posting this just to let you guys know when all these draft picks start moving and you go, oh, this draft just sucks. It doesn't have to. It's probably going to be one of those drafts that is lacking in superstar players. But guys like Justin Williams, Chris Kelly, you need them. Nicholas Kronwall, you need these guys. You need those building pieces. So for a rebuilding team, if you can supplement your team and find some diamonds in the rough in a bad draft or a thin draft, you're doing all right. And I guarantee there are scouts who've gone to games in BC, Alberta, various parts of Canada, the US, and Europe who have found a guy. And they've gone back to their team and said, all right, 6th round, we're drafting this kid. 7th round, we're drafting this kid. I've seen them. They're not on anybody's radar. They're not on any charts anywhere. I think he's going to be an NHL player. It is those moves, those scouting moves that take place that can make all the difference, whether it's a strong draft or a weak draft. And it makes things really, really interesting going forward. So I just figured, just to provide some perspective, because I have thumped this draft pretty bad, including the kids at the top. But I do think that Nolan Patrick will play in the NHL. I do think that Lodegren will play in the NHL. I do think that almost any kid that's in the top 10 will get a shot at it. Will at least get their 9-game tryout. And that scouting is better now than it was in 99 and 2000. So the guys who were drafted in the 7th round, I would think they'd have a far less chance of getting past that many scouts now as they did back then. But we'll find out. I've watched some later draft picks pan out for teams recently, so there's no reason to think that it can't happen again. And even in a draft that's considered a poor draft, and 99 is one of the top poorest drafts. So remember, what I was just reading from, that is a poor draft. I wouldn't think that this year's draft is considered that poor, and there were still real NHL level players to be had there. It's just a matter of finding them. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And I may wear this jersey all the time because the silver maple, this is Maple Leaf. I'm so used to buying Maple Leaf jerseys, I just assume it's a Maple Leaf jersey I'm going to be describing. The silver Red Wing, and just the silver on here that shows all the years they won the Stanley Cup. It is one of the most fantastic touches I've ever seen on a jersey. And I tell you, it is so amazing. And I love the crew neck. They can do all the jerseys with crew necks next year. I'll be very happy. The strings came back for a while. Now the strings appear to be going away again. Whatever. Anyways, thanks for watching. Again, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. We've gained about 100 subscribers in the last, I think, three days. It's been startling. And I know that upward trajectory can continue, and there are some amazing things we can get into as we get towards the first the trade deadline, and then after the trade deadline, then there's the fun of the Stanley Cup playoffs coming up and get, who's going to be in, who's going to be out, and then you have the draft, then you have the expansion draft. After the expansion draft, you have free agency, and where's everybody going to go? And the best thing is, I have 3 weeks off this year. I thought of you guys when I did it. I've got the week off when the Stanley Cup should be awarded, so we can watch that moment together. And the other 2 weeks I have covered the draft and free agency. And I think the expansion draft, but I'll figure it all out. I've already said I'm coming home early for a trade deadline live stream this coming week. So by all means subscribe, because I'm going to cover every major event from all 30 teams' points of view. Whether you cheer for Arizona, Buffalo, Washington, Dallas, Colorado, it doesn't matter. This channel is for all 30 teams' fan bases. And I think the greatest compliment I've had is from new subscribers who aren't quite sure who I cheer for. That is the best compliment that I can get on this channel, because that's what I was aiming for. And thanks, guys, for supporting me and helping me achieve it. So I will talk to you all again soon.